Right now, without looking, can you describe what's on your desk? Not the computer and the keyboard, the other things. The things that aren't part of your work, but somehow live there anyway. There's probably a mug from yesterday, maybe today's mug next to it, a pen you used last week, a stack of papers from a meeting that already happened, a charger for something you're not currently charging, a sticky note with a phone number you already saved, a book you keep meaning to read at lunch. And somewhere under or behind all of it, a tangle of cables connecting devices you may or may not still own. Now here's the question nobody asks. How many of those things did you actually use today? Not might use, not use this week, today. For most people, the answer is about 15% of what's on the surface. The rest is just there. And the word just is doing a lot of work in that sentence, because just there isn't free. Every object in your visual field, whether you're consciously looking at it or not, is something your brain has to categorize as not relevant right now, over and over throughout the day. Each categorization costs a tiny amount of the same attention you need for actual thinking. By late morning, thousands of those micro-categorizations have added up. That's the fog that arrives around 11 and never quite explains itself. That's not a focus problem. That's a furniture problem. The desk is taxing your attention without sending you a bill. In many workspaces influenced by a method developed in Japanese manufacturing, a system called 5S, the desk looks different. Not empty, not minimalist as a style choice. Working. What sits on it earned its place today. Everything else is somewhere retrievable, but not visible. 5 rules, all about what leaves the desk. None of them require buying anything. Here's the model that makes all 5 rules make sense. Your attention for the day has a fixed ceiling. It gets spent on 2 things, your actual work and filtering out everything else in your field of vision. There isn't a separate budget for filtering. Whatever the room takes, your work doesn't get. The standard desk is built on the assumption that everything you might need should be within reach. Sounds sensible. Nobody questions it, but the cost is invisible. Every visible object that isn't part of your current task is a small item your brain must classify as not now, repeatedly, all day. The classification is cheap individually. In volume, it's expensive. By late morning, the accumulated cost is real, and it shows up as a vague slowness that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. The alternative model comes from a Japanese workplace methodology called 5S, developed in Toyota's production system in the 1950s and 60s. The first step is called seiri, roughly sort, but more precisely, remove what doesn't earn its place today. Not what might be useful, not what once was useful, what earns its place today. Everything else goes elsewhere, not thrown away, just not in your visual field while you work. The math is simple. Fewer objects to filter means more attention available for the task. The direction is real, and most people feel it within about 3 days. The first rule. Papers from earlier this week. Every desk has them. A printout from Tuesday's meeting, notes from a call, a receipt, a form you started and got interrupted on. They're not urgent enough to deal with and not disposable enough to throw away. So they sit. And every time your eyes pass over them, your brain reads them, decides not now, and moves on. Each paper is an open loop. 1 loop costs almost nothing. 6 costs 6 times as much. 15 cost 15 times as much. 1 rule solves it. Papers not part of your current task go to one of 3 places. A tray labeled "This Week" outside your sightline, a filing spot, or the recycling bin. Not on the desk, not next to the laptop, off the surface. Most people notice within a day that the desk feels quieter. Same desk, what changed is what their brain was doing with it. The second rule, more than 1 drinking vessel. Look at your desk. Yesterday's mug, today's mug, a water bottle, maybe a glass from last night. The most predictable form of desk clutter in the world, and nobody notices it until someone names it. Each vessel is a tiny background reminder. Take this to the sink. Refill this. Is this still drinkable? Individually meaningless. Cumulatively, a low-grade loop running every time you glance sideways. One vessel at a time. When you refill, you rinse. When you switch from coffee to water, the mug goes to the kitchen. The desk stops looking like a bedside table and starts looking like a place where work happens. The third rule. The phone leaves the desk. Not face down on the desk, in a drawer, in another room, across the room on a shelf. The phone within arm's reach is an ambient invitation, and your brain knows it's there whether the screen lights up or not. The cost isn't the notifications you see, it's the background awareness of a device you might check. That awareness runs constantly, quietly, draining exactly the kind of attention you need for deep work. Move the phone to a drawer that closes. Check it at specific intervals. The enforcement is architectural, not moral. You're not relying on willpower. You're relying on the fact that getting up to check Instagram feels like too much effort, and your brain knows it. People who move the phone off the desk notice the change within 2 days. Not better focus, the absence of a specific restlessness they'd stopped attributing to anything. The fourth rule. Tools from finished projects. The sticky notes from last month's project. The notebook from July. The USB drive from a presentation in September. The reference book from the report you already submitted. These aren't tools. They're the fossil layer of previous work. Every object signals to your brain what this workspace is for. When the desk carries items from 4 different projects and 2 dead ones, your brain doesn't know what mode to be in. Each unconscious context switch costs attention. Weekly clearing. Every Friday or Monday morning, tools from projects you're not currently working on go to a labeled folder, a shelf, or a drawer. When you return to that project, you retrieve them. In the meantime, they don't share the desk with today's work. The desk after this feels smaller and sharper. It's about one thing again. The fifth rule, the just-in-case items. This is the rule that reframes all the others. Look at your desk and find the things that are there because you might need them. The reference book you might check, the folder you might file, the manual you might configure, the spare notepad in case you need to jot something. These aren't tools, they're anxiety, physically placed on a surface. A just-in-case object isn't there for a real use. It's there so you don't have to decide whether you might need it later. Every one is a small delegation of worry to the desk surface. The pile grows because leaving something out costs less effort than deciding to put it away. One test. Does this earn its place today? Not, might it be useful? Everything might be useful. Is it being used today? If not, it goes somewhere else. A shelf, a drawer, a labeled box. Retrievable, not visible. This is the habit that pulls the other 4 into one system. Every previous item, papers, mugs, phone, tools, is a form of just in case that the desk quietly accumulated. Once you see the pattern, you need one rule instead of 5. Earn your place today or leave the surface. A few honest notes. First, Japanese workers have minimalist desks is a stereotype, and it's largely not true. Many Japanese offices are famously cluttered. Papers, mascots, sticky notes, gift boxes, energy drinks. The method described here comes from manufacturing, specifically Toyota, and it's more visible in factories, hospitals, and lean-oriented workplaces than in the average office. This video applies a Japanese-developed method to your desk. It doesn't describe how Japanese people actually work. Second, some jobs genuinely require many things within reach. Designers with reference materials, makers with tools. The goal isn't to hide everything. It's to have exactly what you need and nothing more. The principle scales down more gracefully than up. Third, if your phone is your calendar, your 2-factor authentication, and your work chat, moving it to another room isn't practical. Modified version. Face down, out of your dominant hand's reach, notifications off. Not perfect, better than the default. Fourth, a cleared desk doesn't fix a job that's too much work. If you're doing the work of 2 people, No arrangement will save your afternoon. What a cleared desk does is stop making the situation worse. It's a floor, not a ceiling. Where this comes from. The 5S system, Seiri, Seiton, Seiso, Seiketsu, Shitsuke, was developed in Toyota's production system after World War II. On a factory floor, a tool not in its designated spot was a safety hazard and a production delay. The first S, Seiri, meant removing anything from the workspace that wasn't needed for the current operation. The principle turned out to travel well. Hospitals, kitchens, laboratories, workshops, and eventually home offices all benefit from the same logic. The fifth S, Shitsuke, means sustain, maintaining the practice over time. It's what turns a one-time desk clearing into a daily habit. Without it, the desk returns to its previous state within a week. Japanese office space per person is historically among the smallest in the developed world. And Japanese apartments make home offices a matter of a few square meters, not a spare room. When workspace is small by necessity, subtraction becomes the default organizational strategy, because addition literally doesn't fit. The constraint forced the solution. The solution turned out to be better than what larger spaces produce by default. If you do one thing after this video, do this right now. Not tonight, now. Look at your desk and remove everything you haven't used today. Not organized, not rearranged, removed. Off the surface. Into a drawer, onto a shelf, into a box, into the recycling bin. Don't overthink it. You'll rescue anything you actually need within a day. The point is to see, physically, how much of what was on your desk earned its place today. This week, at the end of every workday, do a 2-minute reset. Clear the surface of anything that isn't part of tomorrow's work. Mugs to the kitchen, papers to their spot, tools back to their drawer. 2 minutes, timer on. By Friday, notice how late morning feels. Not transformed, not perfect, just noticeably less foggy than it used to be at that hour. That's the desk giving back the attention it was quietly taking. That late morning fog we started with. The same paragraph read 3 times, the vague slowness that never explains itself, the mug and the papers and the cable. None of it was you running out of energy. It was a desk that had been charging a small tax on your attention since you sat down. Clear the surface. Do it once, fast. Do it once at the end of every day. See what your Friday feels like. If this was useful, there's another video on why Japanese kitchens stay clean without anyone really cleaning them. Same principle, different room.